Are you working on your first resume? Or if not, could your old one use some sprucing up? Hi, I'm Michelle from WriteByNight, a writer service and writing center in East Austin. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to write a resume. The most important thing I can stress to you as you work on your resume is that you need to tailor your resume for whatever you're applying for. So before you even begin, you should check whether you're applying for a school. A lot of times schools will have certain formats they would like to receive the resume in. Or if you're applying for a job position, it's always great to look at what the employers are wanting in their candidates and even try to mimic some of the language they use in their requirements on your resume. So once you have a good idea of the type of resume you need, be it creative, professional, or academic, the next step is to decide on a format. And there are a lot of ways you can do this, but I have an example of a simple resume format for those of you who would like a little bit of a visual example. And so the first step is you want to have a header, something that provides your name and any contact information you'd like to include. For example, a phone number, email address, or maybe even a home address if you think that would be helpful. So once you have your heading all set, the next step is to find out what section headings make sense for you. So on this example, I have education, experience, activities, involvement, or research, whichever of those fit with you and your experience, awards, skills, work status, and interests. And these might not be the headings that make sense for you, but this is just an idea for a starting point. So under education, if you're going to include that, if you've been to college, graduate school, any higher education past high school, you want to include any of those experiences and make sure you include the name of the school, any majors, degrees, and some companies and schools ask for GPAs, others may not. So that might be a time when you want to look at the requirements for where you're applying. If you haven't yet been to college, then you should include any high school information, GED information, anything of that sort. Next, you'll have your experience. It can be work experience, volunteer experience, professional experience, anything like that. And important things to include for your work experience are first, the name of the company or volunteer organization, your position, whether you were an intern all the way up to, senior vice president. You want to include the dates at which you were employed or volunteering for that organization. And then it's always a good idea to include a few bullet points detailing your responsibilities or any projects completed while you were working with that group. And it's always great to include as much experience as you can, and tailoring your experience and your bullet points to the job or school you're currently applying for is always a good idea. So now that we've talked about education and professional experience, two of the most important sections on our resume, I'd like to talk to you about a couple others that aren't necessary, but might be good if they fit well with what you've done in the past. So the first section is a section that includes any type of activities, community involvement, or research that you might have accomplished in the past. And this can include a sorority or fraternity you may have been in, a group you might have been a leader of, any volunteer experience if you didn't include it earlier in your work experience, or even any type of research project you've undergone, such as a dissertation, a thesis, maybe even a long-term project that meant a lot to you or you really grew from if it fits well with what you're applying for. Another section that you may or may not include is awards. So any important salient award that you've received that you think might look good for this potential employer or potential school would be a great thing to include on your resume. Another one is skills. And it sounds kind of funny, but the kind of skills I'm talking about are things like computer skills. Do you know a programming language? Are you proficient in Microsoft Word or Excel or Access? Things like that are really useful and can really set you apart from another candidate. Another great skill to include is any proficiency in a foreign language, whether it's full fluency or even just a working knowledge or conversational. That can be something else that sets you apart. Another thing you might want to include is your work status, be it citizen or you have your work permit or whatever it may be. A lot of times employers will find that to be very helpful. And a final category that some employers may like, others may not, and it's really up to you, is your interests. Especially if your interests really coincide with the type of program or job you might be applying for, or if it's just more of a creative, personable company and you think they might be interested to know a little bit more about you. So like I said, these are just some ideas for sections, but as you think about it, as you work on your resume, just be aware of what works for you and what makes sense for your resume. So now that we've gone through all of the different components of a resume, what's important to keep in mind is length. I know this sounds like a lot, but it's really important to try to keep your resume about to the front of one page unless the potential employer or school tells you differently. And a great way to do this while still including all the important information is to keep a master list on your computer. So every time you're in a new job or at a different school or something like that, if you just keep a list on your computer of different projects you do, different responsibilities you have, and have a master resume that can be as long as you would like it to be, that has all of the different points on it, so that when you start tailoring your resume for a specific job, you can choose simply the responsibilities and points that make the most sense for that position or for that school. So now that you've talked about the length of your resume, another important formatting topic that I'd like to touch on briefly is making sure that everything is consistent. So as you can see on this one, and this is, as I said, this is very simple, but it's always good to have consistency with your font size, with your indentations, and with the way that you list your job experiences. So the way you list job experience number 1 should look the same as the way you list job experience number 2, etc. And even if you want to get really picky about it, it's often good if you can use the same number of bullet points, at least for the most important ones. Older jobs that might not be as relevant, you might have fewer for, but the first couple that you think are the most applicable to what you're applying for, you should try to have them mirror each other in style and format in the way you write them. And another good tip when you're putting your resume all together and you're finalizing it is to make sure you're using active language. So instead of saying, you took care of something, you managed something. Instead of saying you put something together, you organized it. And so using words like that, especially if you can use words that mirror the job description online or the profile of students that a school might be looking for, that can be an additional thing that helps you if you use their language on your resume, because it kind of shows not only that you've been paying attention, but it might sort of give your resume that little extra something that they might be looking for. In another video, I'll be giving tips on writing a cover letter, especially one that will be customized to your future employer or even to the school you're applying to. And in another video, I'll be talking about job interviews, from what to wear to what to say to make the right impression. Thank you for watching my video, and I really hope it was helpful for you. If you'd like to know more, visit us at www.writebynight.net and give the video a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and please subscribe to our channel.